Hello, guten Abend, welcome to live stream. Nice to see you, nice. Yes. So today the live stream is called Bum Bum Bum. This is the only true teaching of non-duality. Lisa Cairns, non-duality. And in this life, I won't bother reading what we're going to do. Yeah. Yes. First of all, like always, we will do the meditation. Somebody said to me that I do not need to describe all the meditations each time. So today, I'm not going to describe the meditations. Today, you have to remember what we did before. And if you're new, you have to go back to an old video. Or you can go to Lisa Cairns video clips, I think it's called. And there's meditations on there and it will teach you. But before we meditate, I want to give the disclaimer of who is it that's meditating. So who is the doer? So the person likes to believe, as always and with everything, that I am the doer of everything and that I'm in control of this life. So it ardently, I don't think I said that word right. It has conviction that it is the creator of its own actions. So when you go to meditate, the person thinks, I am meditating, I am choosing to do an action, and then I'm going to progress through time to enlightenment. And it's all this belief in a separate person, that separate person is the dictator and the author of life. And that is what needs to be questioned. Is that true? Is that true that the person is the author and that you're going to arrive somewhere? And that's what we question in non-duality continuously. Like, who is this person that is claiming authorship, doership, that is claiming to exist? Who are you? So even though I give meditation, I'm not trying to imply that you have the choice to do it or not do it. It's either going to happen or not. The body is either going to have thoughts that arise like, oh yeah, I like the idea of this, or how dare you, does she not know the principle of non-duality? She doesn't know anything. Boo, give her the thumbs down, thumbs down. Yes. Yeah, or you just might be like, I don't feel like doing it today. Might not be so dramatic as the moody face. So it's either going to happen or not, and neither of it's your fault, neither of it is something that you can own. It's something that's happening. All of us are happening, like the breeze, like the sun, like the sky, and the person is always claiming things, and through its claiming, it suffers. It suffers. Yes. So even though we start meditating, that is the disclaimer. I'm not saying you do something and you are going to get something. I'm saying this is a nice thing to do, and it might happen to settle down the personal dynamics and make it so non-duality is more hearable. When you're in deep suffering, then it's impossible to hear this is non-duality. Even though it's heard beyond the person, it's like the person becomes this like dense, thin, thick fog in front. So it's just this settling down of the person. But there's always exceptions to everything, and I've met lots of people that have woken up in immense suffering. So there is always an exception to the rules, because that's the way this majestic life works. Anything is possible. Okay, having said all that, los geht's. Let's meditate. So I shall gong my big dong, and we will meditate. Hello, welcome back. Maybe I bring you a little closer. Nice to see you. If you've just tuned in. Okay, let's begin to the title of the talk. I've forgotten what it is. This is the only true teaching of non-duality. Woohoo! That is a very exciting title, methinks. So first of all, before we begin with the title, I'm just going to do a recap as to what non-duality is. And then I will go into the title. Hang on, just let me check my sound. Yeah, my sound is working. Oh, sorry, Yusi. Sorry. Come on, off you come. That's not your beddy. One, off you come. Sorry, my love. Sorry. There you go. Put something in her beddy. Okay, so what is non-duality? So the assumption is that there is a person that exists as a separate entity inside the body. So there is somebody that is looking out through these eyes, experiencing a separate world. And that somebody has personal volition, doership, and it believes that it maneuvers around this world through time. It believes that it was born, I don't know however many years ago you were born, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years ago, and that person that was born those many years ago is what is sitting and experiencing now. So there is a sense that there is somebody experiencing this that is time bound. And there's also an image to it and an energy to it. And often our image of it is kind of from the third person. You're kind of looking at yourself. And then there is this feeling, this energy of feeling you. So this feeling like that I am something solid. Whereas non-duality suggests that what is looking, what is experiencing now is boundless, is spaceless, and is timeless. It's not identified with one thing in particular, and yet is all things, and it's always present. Life can't happen without it. So that is what the person thinks, like I have to exist in order for there to be consciousness. But it's actually the other way around. There is consciousness, and in that the person is appearing and disappearing. And so what do I mean by consciousness? Consciousness is a funny word, and a lot of teachers have stopped using the word consciousness. Consciousness is not a personal thing, it's not personal awareness. So it's nothing that can be seen. So if you think you see consciousness, you're actually seeing personal awareness. It's like the eye believing it can see itself, like the physical eye. Consciousness cannot see itself, but yet it sees. And consciousness isn't a thing, so this is why teachers begin to stop talking about it, because it's not a thing that is something. So we have these grand names for it, like universal consciousness and all looking or all knowing, but it's not a thing, or all intelligence or intelligence. It's not limited to one thing, so you can't ever pick it up and be like, oh, this is consciousness. I have consciousness. You can't break it, you can't lose it. It's not in the subject-object world. And that's your experience now, but the mind, the person, is focused on a separate experience. Your experience now is that there is consciousness, and that consciousness is everything. So there's not unconsciousness there. There might be unconsciousness there on the human level. We unfortunately have this language in English, like my subconscious or unconscious. We're not talking about the personal awareness or the personal consciousness. We're talking about that consciousness at the fundamental awakeness of life. So it's like we say, you are knocked out, and that is unconscious. And we're talking about the consciousness that comes with being awake. It's actually there when you're knocked out, but there's just no things present in order to be conscious of. So it has no memory of anything. But we just say that for you to get a cognitive sense of it. So there is consciousness, and there has to be consciousness in every experience. You can't have an experience without consciousness, otherwise it would not exist. So it's back to that famous quote in Zen Buddhism where it says, if a tree falls in the middle of the forest and there's no one there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. Like there cannot be experiencing without consciousness. But you could say the experiencing and consciousness are one and the same thing. You could say the objects which are perceived are the same thing as consciousness, because consciousness isn't behind the eyes or from behind the person. The consciousness is in all things. It is all things. So it can't be found. It's there. It's the table. It's the computer. It's my cup. It's the light. It's the window. It's the dog. It's everything that is perceived. And there is no inside or outside that. It's not like, oh, this is inside Lisa's consciousness. There is simply consciousness. The inside of Lisa's consciousness or outside of Lisa's consciousness comes from time. In this very moment, right here, right now, consciousness cannot come and go and does not have a limit to it. It's limitless. It is everything that is appearing, which is infinite. In fact, you could say it's beyond infinite. It is beyond language. It's beyond conceptual thinking. What happens in the person is because the person is so fixated on itself and on what it can and can't get and what it wants and what it doesn't want, or on the other person even, because it's so fixated on the human realm of thinking and the human world, it's like got this narrow focus, and then that is uncomfortable, and there is something called seeking created. This dynamic of seeking to make that discomfort feel better. But if we go back to what you are, that which you are is always there in the seeking, in the discomfort of the person. When the person is completely identified with subject, object, with things, there's always consciousness. Like, look, there is things appearing, so therefore there's consciousness. Tick. And that consciousness is not limited. That consciousness is not belonging inside the body. It's the idea that says my consciousness belongs inside my body. The consciousness is everywhere already, inherently. Like the mind says it's inside my body and it finishes somewhere. But when you really meditate on it, where does it finish? Does it finish here, 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 in my face, in my nose, in the sofa? So there is your consciousness that ends there, and then there is what? And then I perceive this sofa and Lisa. How can that be true? I must be appearing in, we could say, your consciousness, but your consciousness is not a personal phenomena. This is majestic. This is fantastic. So consciousness is inherently free, and consciousness has another side to it, which I think in like traditional Vedas, it would be called the feminine. So the feminine side of this consciousness of what you are is this I am. And the I am and the consciousness aren't actually separate. They're one and the same thing, which is no thing and all things. And the I am is the sense of existence, and this is the love part. So you could say that like the consciousness is like emptiness, is wisdom, and the love part is the I am. So Nisargadatta Maharaj says, or said, or is quoted to say, to know I am nothing is wisdom, which to me is the consciousness. And to know I am is love. And in between my life resides. Which I think is really beautiful, because what he's pointing to is like consciousness is kind of the non-manifest, and the I am is the manifest, and the body is kind of the portal between these two worlds. The body, like the creation of the body and looking through these bodies, is like the portal. I kind of think it's really beautiful and profound, but all of that is imaginary, and that's not actually it, but it kind of gives you tastes of something that is beyond your conceptual thinking. And this I am is this sense of being. So my friend said to my mum one time, like, I don't speak to my mum about non-duality, very rarely, but my friend said to my mum when she was 70, she said, I don't feel like I'm 70. And he went, no, you feel like you're the same as when you were 21, or when you were 13, or when you were 30 or 40. And she was like, yes, I do. And he said, it's just your thoughts and your feelings and your ideas and your body which has changed, but your essence, your sense of you, that sense of being, is like ageless and timeless. And she was like, yes, and she really like got into it and got it. And it's not like, because it goes so quickly, and I am something, like I am good, I am bad, I am right or wrong, that can't be perceived. But the I am, which is prior to all that, this sense of this is, rather than this isn't, although this also isn't, but this sense of existence is love. It's everything. It's love, and you can kind of feel it. Ramana Maharshi used to say it appears in the left side of the heart, like it is connected to the chakra of the heart, but it is actually everywhere. Just like it feels like the consciousness is looking through the eyes, so it feels like it's coming from a perspective, like it doesn't feel like it's coming from the clock on the wall. The I am kind of feels like it's in the heart, but really it's everywhere in all things. When you explore it, you realize I am is everywhere. Like my sense of being, prior to the idea of me, prior to my character, my personality, my feelings, my thoughts, is in all things. And that empty looking is in all things. So what we are, our essence, is absolutely wordless. Absolutely. Like there isn't words that can be put onto it. There isn't feelings that can be put onto it. Even though we say love, it's not conditioned love. When you fall in love and when you love something, there is a sense of the I am, because what happens in that is the seeking falls away, so it kind of springs forward. So we do know that I am, but we muddle it up with the endorphins and the pleasure that are released when falling in love with something or loving something. But there is this sense of it, because in that moment the seeking stops. Like when you find something you love, you don't want to move on to the next thing. You're like, oh, it suddenly brings this moment back to life, which is what you are. When there is identification with the person, like complete identification, there needs to be some form of identification with the person, otherwise there would most probably be some form of physical death, or like institutionalization, unless I'm misunderstanding that part. So there needs to be some sort of like anchoring in some way. Like if there was no identification, to me it's like the body wouldn't be able to function. So there's some form of identification happens, but when there is like total identification or a lot of identification, so when there isn't like a massive grounding in what you are, then seeking arises. And this seeking deadens everything. It makes everything feel removed, because you're not really here. You're in the seeking, you're in the timeline, you're in past and future. And it kind of like happens automatically, and it's not just thoughts, it's feelings. It's kind of like you're dreaming in this other world, and then what's actually happening sort of feels a bit dead because you're in this other world. You kind of feel removed from it. But because there's no comparison, and because most of society is like that, there's no sense of that. I'm not talking about not having difficult or uncomfortable emotions or uncomfortable thoughts. I'm talking about this identification and this seeking. So I'm not talking about the removal of thoughts or feelings. It's an identification. It's like that person is center stage and you're kind of lost in the fog of it. Or there's just kind of a dense fog, and that feels real, and there's not this other world. There's not this like intimacy with what is. There is like this intimacy with what's not, with the illusion. And this illusion is like a dream, like a waking dream. And it becomes very real. Like super real. Like it feels absolutely real. Absolutely real. And it's not like from that perspective you can kind of get non-duality. It's like from that perspective there just isn't a sense of it. In the dualistic world, yeah, non-duality is there because non-duality is everything, but everything is separate. Everything is subject-object based. So what does this teaching mean, and how does it, or what does it give to you as a person, as an individual? In one way you could say this has nothing for the individual. This is really not about the individual. This is about a calling of something that's different from the individual. And it doesn't seem like all of humanity have that calling. It seems like there is a select few that have this calling. It's like it's spoken about and there is a knowing of it. I don't know why that is. But in one way you could say it doesn't give anything to the human. It's not a time-bound thing. It doesn't necessarily fix your emotions or your karma on the human level. If you had a tendency towards anger, it could be that goes, but it could be that stays. Or if you had traumas, it could be that goes, but it could also be that it stays. It's really not about the person becoming something. Like the person has karma, and you can improve that karma, and waking up can improve that karma. From my experience, it improved my karma as Lisa. Like, and what I mean by karma is my habits, conditions, and traumas, but there's still that there. Lisa still has the qualities of Lisa and responds in ways in which you responded in the past. But it's not really about that. And if that's your hope, that it's going to improve you, which normally is always the hope on the personal level, it's not realistic. You know, if you want to improve you, you have to go to therapies, which are often included in non-dual teaching, and in some not. So you have to go to therapies, to emotional release workshops, spiritual workshops, all these different things to help improve the person's condition and understanding its karma. Like in yoga, so in traditional Vedas, there's the yoga, breathing techniques, devotion, all these different practices which help improve your karma. But it's not that you get to the end of your karma and then you wake up. That's the dream of the person, because that's how our stories work. It's like the gold at the end of the rainbow. So our storytelling is about us having obstacles and overcoming those obstacles. So we like this narrative of that we do all this karma to help our self wake up, and at the end of the story is the enlightenment. We like that narrative. It works for us, and it's sold a lot in spirituality. I was watching this advertisement that came up on my video from Gaia House. They do a streaming service, and there was an advertisement for a documentary, and they were really selling this like big dramatic spiritual search, going to all these spiritual teachers, and I could see how they were like making it into a thing. And to make it into a thing, they were going down all the spiritual paths, you know, speaking to sadhus and speaking with people where it seemed very spiritual, and then doing practices of meditation and yoga. And that's beautiful. I'm not criticizing it, but it goes into our storytelling. And the way in which we create a collective reality as humanity, or most of humanity, is through storytelling. And we like this idea of overcoming obstacles. That's what all our stories and films are based on. If you don't have that, it normally won't be published, because that's what interests us, like how we overcome obstacles. We listen to these stories and we learn from them, we overcome and we overcome and we overcome. Sometimes the obstacles can take us down. We're also interested in that as well. But that's what we're interested in, is obstacles and how the person deals with it. So having this story of going through a path and you becoming enlightened works with our imagination. But that's not non-duality. That's imagination. And this imagination of what a spiritual person looks like, first of all, in this video that I watched by Gaia House, and if I could have commented on the video, I would have, but it was an advertisement, so I couldn't. First of all, most of the people speaking in that trailer were men. And men that look spiritual, or men that look very professional, like a professor at a university. So that is a very traditional image of what spirituality is to us. This male figure, long beard, older maybe, looking a particular way. So in no way in this documentary did they confront our stereotypical idea of how knowledge or wisdom is passed on. They did have one woman speaking, but I don't even think she was speaking about spirituality. I think she was maybe speaking about I can't remember. So, you know, we got the university professor, we got the gurus, you know, we've got the old man with the pipe, you know, this idea, this stereotypical idea of what wisdom is. And if it's a woman with wisdom, it's more associated with a very motherly, healer kind of figure. And that's what our archetypes of these teachers are. So like Gangaji is a really good archetype for a female spiritual teacher, because she's super, super motherly. She's got such a divine and heavenly voice, but she fits into this like motherly figure. And these are the two, but it's predominantly men that are the teacher. I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to go off on a patriarchal rant, but it's just our ideas. I'm just trying to fill in these stories, and it does fit into the title that we tell. yeah, so we've got these archetypes, and when we're writing stories, so I'm a story writer, it's easier for us to have these archetypes in the stories because to confront it is a whole story in itself. So it's easier to go with these archetypes that we already know. So that's why often these stories. So if we think of like Harry Potter, for example, the spiritual teacher definitely in that is Dumbledore. So he's got the long beard and he's got this sense of like going beyond, something ethereal, this leadership quality, this like righteousness, this goodness to him. He's like the head of Dumbledore School. He's like a professor. I can't remember what he teaches or used to teach at Hogwarts. I love it how English Harry Potter sounds. Hogwarts, that's so English. Dumbledore. Harry Potter. Yeah, so this is what we're presented with. What we have now, and what we've had since the 70s, and we most probably had it before then, but it's really prevalent and in our media of what we can see now, is we have a rebellion against this stereotypical notion. So over the last 60, 70 years, we've had like a rebellion against the typical image of a guru. Like we had Osho, even though he looked like a typical guru, he, bought all these Rolls Royces and just was like really outrageous. And who else have we had? We had lots of alternative teachers. And then if you go into non-duality, we've got lots of anti-gurus, like Carl Rentz. I mean, not saying that he's anti-guru, but it's like this anti-guru figure. Or we've got and I'm not commenting positive or negatively on this, I'm just saying we've got what is that teacher, Paul Hederman, with all these tattoos and been in is a teacher of AA, was a drug addict. And some of these people I'm speaking of, I love them teachings. It's not me commenting either way, I'm just trying to give you images. And you've got me, that's an anti-guru, I presume. But you don't really have that many women anti-gurus. It's a bit harder for that to penetrate. In spirituality, what really works for the woman is if they have this motherly domain. But we have lots of male anti-gurus. If you can think of women anti-gurus, please put in the box. So the reason that I'm an anti-guru is I don't look like a guru. So my stereotypical image that comes across in YouTube is most probably a woman that's very materialistic and does her nails and likes expensive clothes. But that's what comes across on YouTube. If you actually see me in person, you realize that I'm a bit of a hippie. But maybe that comes across in YouTube. I think it doesn't. You see my face on YouTube and it's like this blonde woman with makeup on, and you can't really see what I'm wearing, and I look very feminine. And that's an anti-guru because I'm not very motherly. I also have accidents. Like last week, I'm sure a lot of you saw, I forgot to put the beginning sequence on, and I thought I wasn't live, and I was sitting there just sharing it and doing all the technical stuff before I go live, and I sat there and did a massive burp. Now to me, I thought, well, that's not that bad. It could have been a lot worse. I could have gone for a bogey or scratched my ass or pulled up my boobies or something. I could have been a lot more embarrassing things I did. I was like, oh, it was a burp, air passing through my vocal box. Yeah. So when I started, though, 11 years ago, I think I started teaching. It wasn't so common. Now there's lots of young women that are doing what I did that look similar to me. And when I say lots, they're not really popular, but there is women coming up doing that. But when I started, there wasn't that many, and it caused a lot of controversy. And people liked it and people didn't, It's like they click on the video because they're like, how could she have any knowledge? She surely needs to be stupid and very materialistic and just concentrating on money and getting what she wants in life. Yeah. But it doesn't matter. Like, ultimately, it doesn't matter what the teacher looks like or what character it comes through. I don't even know if it matters what the energy of the person is, if the person has had awakening or not awakening. What matters is there is a resonance with something that's deeper. There is a remembering of something which goes beyond themselves. I think, but I ultimately don't know what really matters. But all these ideas that we have of the guru is bad, or this one is bad, or this one is bad, or this one is right, or that's not right, that is our love for stories. That is our love for this polarity of good and bad. You know, our stories play off of that. Like Harry Potter was written like over 20 years ago, I think, like 30 years ago, 97, I think the first book was published. So, and what it succeeds off is the hero's tale of this. Harry is a representation of good, and Voldemort is a representation of bad. And it's the most popular book, I think, in the world ever. It's so popular, it's so ingrained in us to be involved in this story of good and bad. We love it. And it also depends on the way that our parents taught us. And, you know, we got the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp story, which is covering the news. And I find that a lot of people are very fascinated in it because, again, it's like, who is the good one and who is the bad one? I need to know which is which. I need to know which one is true and which one is a lie. And there is like lots of identification and movement towards that. And it's so juicy for this mind. But it's not... it's not relevant in teaching or in non-duality. So the idea of... what is the title of this talk? This is the only true teaching of non-duality, is crazy, because non-duality cannot be contained in a teaching. What you could say is every teaching of non-duality doesn't get non-duality. So if you were really going to go for something, you could say no teaching actually grasps non-duality. It cannot. Words cannot talk about the wordless or the timeless or non-duality. So any teaching of non-duality in a way can never be correct. So the idea that people have of that I'm with the right teacher, or that this is the true teaching, this is the ultimate teaching, and all other teachers are fakes or frauds or leading you astray, is back to Harry Potter. You're in the Harry Potter world. It's just a fantasy. It's your heartbreak, you know, it's your injury from childhood. What is beyond that? So there it is, playing out this urge, this want for right or wrong. My personality character can have that, you know. It's fascinated by what's true. You know, I like murder mysteries. I enjoy Harry Potter, I enjoy stories, but it's not non-duality. That's in the human world. It's in the human world. It's in what we've made up and what we've deemed as important. Khaleesi, my beautiful sidekick, I just show you her so you can see that she's still alive. She doesn't feature in the videos very often anymore. There she is! So Khaleesi, can I just ask you a question, Khaleesi? I will give you a piece of chick, afterwards. Yeah, if you can answer us correctly. Do you care about what's good or bad if it involves chick? Do you care about what's good and bad? Do you care about whether it's fair that You get to be fed and pampered like a queen, and Lisa's to go out and earn all the money. Oh, I can't think of things that are good and bad in the dog world. Like for Khaleesi, she when she's killing a chicken, she killed some in Thailand. The chickens run around free, and she killed some. She didn't kill it fairly. She didn't kill it and put it out of its pain quickly. She played with it. She rolled on it. She killed it. When I caught her and when I saw her doing that, I tried to stop it. It's not like I sat there and was like, oh yeah, Khaleesi, be really evil. But she has no sense of that, because she doesn't have this opposite thinking of what good and bad is. Everything just is free, without concept. And that's non-duality, but it cannot be spoken of. Any speaking of it loses it. Oops. So the person wants to know what is true, what is right and wrong, who is guilty, who isn't guilty. The person wants to know that. It's fascinating. That's what all stories are based on. When you watch Netflix this evening, when you read your book this evening, look at it. What is it based on? Good and bad, right and wrong, morality, and what is experiencing it. So in that film, whatever you're watching, so say you're watching Star Wars, so there is the characters. You've got Luke Skywalker fighting against Darth Vader. So the dark side. So in the film, imagine if Luke thought, okay, if I kill Darth Vader, which is actually my father, then I will be liberated. I will become enlightened. I will find enlightenment. But enlightenment isn't what the characters do in the film. So Luke wants to find out his source. Enlightenment is the light which is creating the film. So if you imagine it like an old-fashioned projector that is going through pictures and creating the projection on the screen. So it's the actual light which is the freedom. So the character is convinced that doing these actions of killing the dark side, which is exactly the same as what we do in non-duality, killing our karma, killing any negative emotions, and then we will become peaceful and free of all the darkness. So Luke feels like if he kills the dark side, he will then become free. His character will be liberating the film, but that speaks nothing about what's actually making up that film, which is the light. It speaks nothing of it. He just will become more liberated in the film, which is fantastic. His life will improve. Unless Disney decides it wants to make lots of second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seven, 8 episodes, and then it has to keep fighting the darkness. But it doesn't speak about the source of everything. So him actually waking up is him knowing beyond his thoughts that what animates him is the light of the film. And that's not something that can be expressed. It's not something that can be thought about. It's deeply knowing, which is beyond the intellect, that the light is moving. The light is creating, not him. He is a fragment of the light. He is colours in the light. And it appears and it disappears. And his character doesn't die. So if he dies in the film, his character doesn't die. The light moves on to something else. And that's exactly what's happening here, sort of. Well, not exactly. It's all pointers. Yes. Okay, so if you want to ask any questions, then my Skype address is lisacairns12. So you can add me on Skype. The information is in the box below about my Skype address, and you can ask questions. Once I've finished with the questions on Skype, then I will go to YouTube live chat. If you want to call in, please put call me with nothing else after so I can see that and respond appropriately. And I will call you, don't call me. I will call you when I'm ready. Okay, Jay says, call me, yes. I just will speak to Jay. One moment, I have to just put the volume off there. So I'm just calling you Jay. Okay, I don't think Jay is in. Yeah, so you just tell me when you're ready again if you come back, Jay. But don't call me back. Thank you. Okay, so let's take some other questions. Okay, so we've got Q Light. Hey Q Light. So I am in the right place. I watched one of your videos recently and you said that you can answer to some questions on Skype. Yes, Q Light, you're in the right place. I have some you might be at the wrong time though, Q Light. It might be your bedtime, but it worked. I was looking for this kind of opportunity. I have some questions about non-duality and karma. I had some psychedelic experiences in the past 2 years with plant medicine, and I'm really enjoying to learn about Advaita Vedanta and Buddhism, but I don't get the answer for my question from there. It would be great if we can talk someday. I'll be grateful for your time. Sorry if I am writing with some mistakes. English is not my first language. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, okay. That's not for the live stream. Yeah, if you are listening to the live stream Q Light, then this is the time to ask questions. So send the questions in Skype when I do live stream. I don't do personal sessions one-to-one. I do some, but they're people that I've been working with for a while, and I don't take new clients, students. I don't know what to call you anymore. But you can ask through Skype every Sunday at 4 p.m. French time. Hey Thomas. Hey Lloyd. Lisa Cairns selfie. A picture of me not there. Hi Lisa, you made a comment on why some of us are called to search for the truth. I ponder this, and I remember being a very young child of maybe 4 or 5 and having the sense that something changed in the way I saw things, as if eyes were almost veiled by something. Many years later, when I had my first awakening, I looked at a tree and I was in awe for days after the experience. So it is possible that some of us noticed something change as kids and remembered it, whereas others don't notice because it's such a subtle change. We go from looking at the world in a very open way to any almost strained way of looking so gradually. The more sensitive among us feel the dissatisfaction a little more. Hope you're well. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I get the sense that that has truth in it as well. I think there's exceptions to everything, so there's lots of other ways and whys people get into it. But a lot of people do remember that childlikeness, that openness of being, of not being something, but just being. So remember, as a child, like often people romanticize childhood and think back to how wonderful it was being a child as opposed to an adult, and you have so little worries. And they think it's to do with materiality, but I feel it's more that the person has less seeking the younger the age. You know, they're more contented with what's happening, they're more in awe of what's happening rather than in this timeline of the person. Which is beautiful. They can sense that wonder more. Yeah, nice. Thank you, Lloyd, for your comment. Okay, this is the last question. Everybody else has not been asking questions. Michael. Hi, Michael. Hi, Lisa. I would like to hear your thoughts on my experience. I lost 2 hearts close to mine recently. My father, who died alone in his nursing home, isolated by COVID, and my beloved dog of 15 years was hit by a car. As I'm now on the road next to my dog holding her, I found myself repeating, I love you, it's okay, I love you, it's okay. We looked into each other's eyes. We were alone there, and I feel like she told me she was dying. In the moment, the light and colour left her eyes. I experienced a rush of something from her body outward and expanded away. I had this longing in that moment to follow, to chase, and then it stopped. It was all in a second. Wow, Michael, thank you. He's saying that. That's super beautiful. Yeah, I had this experience with a dog, but the dog didn't die in my arms. When I lived in Thailand, this dog got run over by a bike, but it didn't die, but it kind of was like dying. And so I went and caught it and picked it up and took it to the vet so they could give it painkillers and stop the pain. It died later. And I just had this sense as well of like this peace and this acceptance that happens in an animal, particularly in an animal, sometimes a human as well, but particularly in an animal, like there is this beautiful surrender that happens because the animal isn't afraid of dying. The dog has fear, so if it's being chased by another dog, or it has fear and it has pain, it has conditions, but internally it doesn't have a sense of I am separate and I am in relationship. So it doesn't have a sense that it's lived for 12 or 15 years and that it's going to die or it's going to leave you. So when it was looking at you, it didn't have a sense I'm going to leave you. It was just dying. It was just slipping away. And as it slipped away, what will happen is all identification with the body. So it doesn't really have an identification with separation, but it has identification with the body, like I spoke about in the beginning of the talk. But it will just slip away into love. So every boundary that it feels, it will go beyond. So the boundary of the body, boundary of its nose, the boundary of heat will slip away, and it will just go into wholeness, love, this expansiveness. So that which you felt is kind of what happens. It expands back out into everything. And so now your dog is in everything. Not your dog as in the conditions of your dog. That was like a unique particular experience which was contained to that. But the essence of your dog, that which looked at you, that which was conscious, that which was experiencing. And it's here now. There is consciousness, so there is your dog. But just not the name dog. It's essence. It's beautiful. But also I'm so sorry for your losses, Michael. Like we can also say that on the human level because your body was used to your dog and used to your father. And there is a love and a bonding there, and so there is a loss. There is sadness. There is grief. That is what these bodies do. I was watching this video about otters. I sometimes get stuck on YouTube with animal videos. And there's these otters, and they're so cute. And did you know that otters, they do everything together, you know, when they couple, a male and a female? I think. That's my understanding of it. So the female otter wanted to feed, and the male otter couldn't be bothered to move. So she was like nagging at the male otter to come with her. Like, it was very cute. But you can imagine when one of those otters die, you know, that will be very traumatic for the other one. It will be looking and searching for its mate. You know, this is the way we're bound, and I don't see the otter as separate, you know, and suffering like a human does. These are dynamics which arise in these body minds. So death is like a great way of reminding us of that, what's beyond. This is where I feel like psychedelics have their healing power. So in the UK, there's been studies on mushrooms. There's documentaries about it on Netflix, and there's been taking a high dose of psilocybin can alleviate depression, alleviate fear and anxiety. And I feel what happens in those experiences is they kind of have a death experience. They kind of lose their boundaries and go back into everything. And this is so rejuvenating. There is another teacher on the internet called Anna something. I forget her name. Anna Mai or Anna Mia. I'm not very good with names. And she was dying of cancer. She's written a book. If you know her name, please put it in the comments below so that other people can find her. And she wrote a book about having cancer, and she was dying from cancer. And she was in, I think she was in hospice, you know, like, and the doctors gave her like 1 day to live, you know, said she was going to die very soon. And she kind of went into the dying process. And what happened to her was she kind of died before she physically died. So she kind of like let go, I think. Like, so she talks about going into this white light and this expansion and this love. And it totally healed her body and regenerated her body. I'm not saying that happens in all cases, like death happens, but it's what happened in her being. Like, it's very regenerating, these experiences. But this is what I feel like happens with magic mushrooms, is it's like a die. You die. I'm not recommending magic mushrooms, and I'm not recommending doing anything illegal if you want to do any of that, these psychedelic experiences. There's some countries they're legal in, and I would only ever suggest doing it there. And if it's not legal, I don't recommend doing it. Yeah. Thank you for being so open and willing to share Michael's beautiful message. I really appreciate it. Dear Lisa, sending you love in the form of words, thoughts and deep feelings. Oh, beautiful, Izzy. Ich liebe dich. Katie. Hey, Katie. Thank you for your talk. You answered my question last week, so please answer another question first if it arises. Something I'm wondering about related to your words is the religion spiritual teaching of humans having a higher nature and a lower nature. It resonates with me to develop in myself and see expressed in other qualities like truthfulness, kindness, selflessness, humility, etc. High nature qualities, if you will. To me, this seems like an important spiritual capacity we have as humans. How does this relate to non-duality, or what are your thoughts on this? Is it like seeing this preference for seeing these qualities can arise? The desire to develop them can arise. It just doesn't come from person. Perhaps it's, as you said at the beginning, non-duality is beyond higher and lower nature. It's beyond higher and lower nature. There is the famous story from the Bhagavad Gita. I can't say it today. Bhagavad Gita. I can't remember their names, where God says to a human, the human has to go to war with his village and with the neighboring village, and he says to God, but some of them are my brothers and sisters, please, I don't want to kill or hurt them. And God replies, it's not you that's killing or hurting them, it's me. You know, I love these concepts too. I love the idea of humans being more truthful and kind and less and selfless and humility. And it feels like when there is this awakening, the human being expands more and more to this. But just in being alive, we destroy others. You know, the nature for one body to live means that others have to be consumed. Even if you're a vegan, you know, when your corn or when the grass or whenever is cut, can you think how many field mice and slugs and insects are killed and tortured in the turbines? It's a nice idea, isn't it? Yeah, those qualities can come about, and yeah, I think that when there's awakening, there tends to be a more movement towards that which resonates in love. But I wouldn't get too hung up on it. It's, you know, a big delusion for the person. Goodness. We really don't know what's good. And really the truth to it is, which is a little scary for me to say on the internet, is that you have to act out God's will. And that might not always be good. But I feel a little vulnerable and scared saying that on the internet because I'm afraid of that teaching being misused by sociopaths and psychopaths and extreme narcissists. To be honest with you. So I used to say that a lot more, but then, you know, I got pie on my face and I became more reluctant to say it, but it really is. And that might not be the good thing. You know, it's really surrendering to God's will. Not surrendering to your basic urge or selfish urge. It's surrendering to God's will, which is a different thing that's very misunderstood. Wow. Yeah. Thanks, Katie, for your question. Beautiful. If anyone wants to call in, please, but call me. Okay, yes, Jay is ready. Skype is not good. So I will call you now. One moment.
Hey, Lisa. Good to speak to you.
Hey, Jay. Hey, sorry, 1 second. Just let me turn your volume down a bit before you pop my ears out. Could you just speak again?
Yeah, hello. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better, yeah. Nice. How can I help you or not help you today?
Well, yeah, preferably help. I'm only joking. Yeah, and actually, yeah, just to maybe help you, what you just said about, God's will. Like if it's, understood correctly, it can be very helpful to get people out of their own, maybe self-centered will. So, no, I like that you talk about that. And I think Ramana Maharshi used to, talk about a similar thing as well, which is quite helpful because for me, that kind of helps to connect the mind and the heart. So like the mind, focusing on the silence, and the heart is more of that devotional surrender. So yeah, personally, I find that quite helpful. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.
And yeah, in terms of just my question is, yeah, no, thanks for that very beautiful YouTube video about the poem you wrote about your dad.
Thanks.
And actually, I sent you a poem on Skype as well, I think about a month ago. So, and it's something that I've recently found I had a talent for. Is
Nice.
that something you do yourself, or like, what's your process for, writing?
Hang on a moment, just give me a moment. Yeah, so my process of writing is the same as the way I do these talks or the way that I do anything, is to let it speak. So it's not like a personal thing, and it's just letting it speak. That doesn't mean that it always feels good. Like sometimes writing can be frustrating and difficult, but it's kind of like letting that energy speak for itself. And then also there is learning. Like I studied writing at university, and I've read lots of books on writing. So there is also like a body that has learnt about writing. But when I'm actually doing it, I'm not really thinking about what I'm learning, what I've learnt. That kind of has gone into the body, just like when you drive a car. What I'm thinking about is letting that speak, like letting that come out and letting that flow. So it's the same, it's kind of like tapping, it's not tapping in, but it's kind of the same as like letting life speak rather than Lisa speak. Even though it may sound very much like Lisa, it's like letting life speak. And that's my process for writing.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. And yeah, no, I look forward to hopefully seeing you in London if you're coming to the show.
Yeah, sometimes I do talks near or around London, but it's kind of been a bit off the last couple of years. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, of course. Oh yeah, no, thanks very much.
Yeah, and there's a lot more like what I've noticed a lot more in storytelling and in writing is there's been a lot more non-duality coming forward, particularly in novels and books. And yeah, it's a beautiful time to be, because it feels like, when I first started speaking about this, or when I first got into non-duality, it was kind of like considered as something that was mad or crazy or insane or negative. I got into it in the 2000s and it was still sort of very underground, whereas now I feel like non-duality is like really blossoming, and it's kind of in novels, it's in books, it's coming out, it's leaking through the seams. So it's really a beautiful time to be a writer and also have a profound passion for non-duality.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, for example, on Friday evening I went to see non-duality teacher actually at the Philadelphia Association where you used to teach. And then there's a live stream, with yourself now. And then literally there's two other live streams, like, the next hour and the hour after. And yeah, I've been noticing that a lot of people have been, awakening, and there's a lot more non-duality teachers. So yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of people awakening.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I used to go to the Philadelphia Center to see speakers. It's been happening for years, since the beginning 2000s. The Philadelphia and the Quaker Center near the Philadelphia Center.
Yep.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, nice. Thanks, Jay. Well, lovely to speak with you.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Okay, bye.
Bye. Hi Lisa, this is from Jackie. Do you think that much more people are awake and waking up as opposed to, let's say, 10, 20 years ago? Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's gone viral. It's gone viral. Okay, so that's the end of questions in Skype. I will go to the YouTube chat. Let's see if there's anything decent in there. Sometimes it can just be a bit weird in YouTube chat. Yeah, I don't know if there's any questions on here. Okay, there's no questions on there. We just beam in silence for a bit. Oh, Jackie. So is this like going to increase more and more, like a train that starts moving? Ultimately, human as a whole wakes up. Possibly, Jackie. And at the same time, humanity is awake. There is never really someone that's asleep, because there aren't individuals in the body that are sleeping. There is simply awakeness, which is everywhere, which is all things and no things. Okay, well, I'm just going to go to the bathroom for a toilet break. So if you have any more questions, you can write to me on Skype, or you can write them in the YouTube chat. Oh, there is one there. Okay, but I still go to the toilet. He's so cute. Just a little intermission. If you're a member of the YouTube video clips, YouTube Lisa Cairns video clips, it's not my channel, it's another person's channel, then this will be edited out. But hey, sometimes when you do this sound to her, she does such a cute little thing. There's my jewellery making station. I become incredibly small and then I make jewellery from there. I just shrink myself to the size of an elf and then tick 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 I make my jewellery. Okay. Questions. Thank you. You're such a lovely soul, by the way. Thank you for being here. Oh, thanks, Jackie. That's nice. Okay, so questions in YouTube chat. Is the ego always connected in duality? I don't know what that means, Florin. Is the ego always connected in duality? Yeah, you're going to have to be more specific about what that means. Love your talk so much and you so much it can't be said, Lisa. Oh, thank you, Ida. That's sweet. There will be so many more awakenings because the kingdom of the eternal fiat is coming. The ego is appearing, well, interacting with other persons, so it seems. There is this body with experiences and habits. That's okay, so as long as there's no attachment, isn't it? Yeah, so the ego. So you all can see very clearly Lisa's ego. That's how Ramesh Balsekar used to call it, is the ego, like your habits and your karma. And it's partly genetic and it's partly socially conditioned. And you can see, like, I've got particular habits and ways of being. Obviously, I come across as very artistic and creative and imaginative. So that would be a description of the Lisa Cairns character. Incredibly funny. Doesn't mind passing air through the throat, the voice box publicly. Yeah, I like to enjoy to do faces. Like that's like the ego, the character. And there has to be some form of attachment to it. I remember reading in a book one time from some guru, or that guru with an Indian name, and said if you didn't, the body would die. So gurus always retain particular attachments to things. So one guru, he particularly enjoyed food. But there has to be some form of attachment to the body, otherwise, consciousness can't look through everything. In order for this reality to appear, there has to be a looking through one particular instrument, and so there has to be some sort of glue there. Otherwise, like, consciousness just floats off and starts looking through the tree or the bird, which did happen to me one time when I wasn't on any psychedelic drugs. I was looking at a cat and suddenly I was a cat looking back at me, which was quite trippy. These are called awakening experiences. And it's seeing that awareness doesn't belong to the person. But so it has to stay with one body, and the body has a character. So Lisa has thoughts and urges, and she feels like she does in the Lisa world, but there is a separation that happens, and then it's like this other thing comes through. It's like an energetic shift, and then there's this other reality that's remembered of who you are. So the character exists and is beautiful in its own right, and it's not meant to disappear. And, and that could happen to a sociopath. Why not? And a sociopath is somebody, I think, I always get confused between psychopath and sociopath, but I think sociopath means that it's biological. It's an area in the brain which isn't working. They don't have empathy. And it's not that empathy is a precursor to awakening, which is what people like to think, but mostly because of our addiction to the idea of good and bad. And also this idea of the eternal parent. A lot of people are still craving the eternal parent, the all-loving, all-giving parent. So the idea that a psychopath feels unfair and unjust and they have to be good. They have to be good boys. I've been a bloody good boy and then they're not going to be a good boy and they get enlightenment. How is that fair? They have to be good because being good is a sacrifice. Because I want to be bad too. I want to say to people, stop talking, you're talking too much and I can't take any more of your talking. But instead I listen and I'm like, Yeah. And my character does do that, by the way. It's really trying to recondition this. I'm really working hard to recondition of not listening too much when there isn't a general interest in it. You listen, as a bit as being social, but also putting up your boundaries. I am trying that as well, but I don't begrudge the other person. I completely know it's a dynamic and conditioning from Lisa that she learned in childhood, that you have to listen to other people's blah blah all times at every single cost. Because if you don't, the other person is going to implode and then, you'll have their insides all over you and that's not a good look. So, I'm trying to recondition that, and that is a character thing. That is a character thing. And there's ways to recondition it that are so profound. There's loads of different ways that you can use to recondition it. The imagination of the person is that I will come out ever free of these 9 dynamics. What happens is there'll be a lack of attachment to them, so they would just be a emotion playing out. Another thing is that people get into this and they hope that if I lose all my wants and my desires and all my personality, then I can be overly giving to the other person. I can overrun my boundaries and make the other person happy. And that's not it either. It's beyond the human. What is experiencing now? And these things change. I feel like when you get into this subject, it tends to come with a personality that is open to going beyond itself, that's open to going beyond its ideas and perceptions and dogmas, that's interested in looking outside the box. But the beautiful thing about this life, the magical thing is that anything is possible. So you could also have somebody that is really narrow-minded that gets into this. You could have a Frank Spencer if you're English. Oh no, he's not narrow-minded. Oh, he's so sweet, Frank Spencer. Oh, Betty. You could have, who's someone that's really narrow-minded? Norman from accounting. No, that's a bit unfair on the name. Norman. Yeah. I'm trying to think of a TV character that's, that narrow-mindedness. Why not? Why not? It's not personal. Consciousness is in everything now. It's free. No matter what personality type you have. The good, the bad, or ugly, consciousness, everybody's consciousness is free. It's the birthright of everything. It's the birthright of everything. The dinosaur, the dragon, the insect, the person, the annoying person, the free person, the lovely person, the angry person. It's in all of that. Yeah, thanks, Lisa, for your question. Hi, Rolandito. It's an energetic shift from feeling inside the body to being limitless, but the person remains. It's like you now are not only limited to the person. Yeah, nice. You could say the character, so you get some teachers that say it's the end of me, which is, in the beginning I used to teach more like that, but then I began to find my own way of speaking about it. But it's like the end of the attachment, so those teachers that say there's no me, they'll still say there's a character. But there's no me as in like, who is looking now? It's just vastness, it's emptiness. Who? There is no person experiencing. Why do you have one eye Illuminati symbol in your profile picture? Alfie, I'm hugging my dog. It's not a one eye Illuminati picture. It's just because half my dog head's in the picture too. People love conspiracy. Your talks, that is. Greetings and love to all. If you awaken when it's origin, it took me 10 years to learn it's none other than the divine will. I had a near-death experience as a young child and it brought me to non-duality. They're beautiful, Amanda. Yeah, these often can bring you to non-duality. I can use my remote mouse. Awakening is the collapse of the outer and inner identification, and it takes no time because it's here already. Beautiful, Yusuf. Any more book or documentary recommendations? I have book recommendations on my website, but not non-duality ones. If you want non-duality ones, what is that one called that I read a while ago? I have to look in my book list. The Gift on Netflix, the first season is very beautiful. These are just fictions. I kind of feel like you can hear it in lots of different books. Oh man, audiobooks. Now it might be quite far down there. I do always mean to do that on my website, to do storybooks as well. So really sweet one. Where are you? Oh my god, the wild robot. It's not directly non-duality, but it has a sweetness to it. It's kind of like very present, like in the detail. Stranger in a Stranger Land. That's definitely got non-duality in it. Stranger in a Stranger Land by Robert A. Oh, I don't know how to say that last name. Heinlein. Stranger in a Stranger Land. And that's from the 60s, I think. I mean, Fight Club's got a certain amount, the book Fight Club, of non-duality in it, but it's quite violent. But when you like really listen to a book, you know, and really get into it, it is kind of non-duality. But maybe that's just for me. Like when you really listen to the detail of the words. Yeah, so maybe other people can recommend ones. In Winnie the Pooh, that's definitely got non-duality in it. The Tao of Pooh. The Tao of Pooh. But yeah, recommend them in the chat. Not in the chat, in the comments. If you have any books, that would be super helpful. Oh my goodness. There's so many books on here. Wondering Who You Are is a book by Sonia Lee. She comes to my talk. She's a beautiful lady, and she's into non-duality, but it's her experience with her husband who had an operation because of cancer, and it damaged his brain, and when he woke up he had no sense of himself anymore. It's a really beautiful book. Sonia Lee, Wondering Who You Are. Oh yeah, and is it Divergent, the first book by Veronica Roth? That does have a little bit of non-duality in it. Oh my god, my book list is endless. Yeah, I don't know about others. Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, maybe I should start that. But anyway, that's the end of the talk now. We're at 6 p.m. Yeah. Yeah, lovely. Yeah, lovely to share with you all. Thank you so much for everyone being open and willing to participate and share. I so appreciate it. And I really, really wish you everything. There won't be a stream next Sunday because I start my conference. So I'm doing a conference in the south of France. You're still welcome to join. There's a few places left. That starts next Saturday. So it most probably is for the next 2 weeks. There won't be a live stream because the week after that I'll most really be pooped when the conference finishes. Yeah. Nice. I wish you everything. Just one thing or 2 things, but 3 things. No, everything. Cheers, my lovelies.